approve the agenda. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Any public comment?
No, sir.
Consent agenda? Any questions there?
I have none.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Reports, is there any questions there?
Michelle's obviously not back yet.
She is not.
And she didn't relay anything to me. So there's nothing that has to be talked about. Probably a lot to talk about, but nothing. Sam probably knows more.
Okay. Move on to the regular agenda. Financial software discussion.
So we've been looking at a new financial software. We began using Power Manager in 2010, and it's been used by many other utility companies.
Actually,
years.
Kathy corrected me this morning. She thinks Power Manager came in like the 80s, late 80s, early 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I
So a
think
lot
it's-
longer than we had thought.
Yeah, I think they've been using it since I've been here.
Okay.
That was
Geez,
03.
that's a long time.
Yeah.
That's whole three.
Back in the 1900s.
Yeah, almost last decade. When he started last century.
So Power Manager was designed and supported by the Nebraska Municipal Power Pool. Power Manager is a program designed by and used by and supported by municipal electric utilities. In 2023, it was purchased by Enhance. Since then, Enhance has indicated that they only intend to support the software, but they're not planning any updates, not conforming to the needed OS updates. Literally, all they're going to do is support it. So they will not innovate any new changes to it at all. So that kind of got us started thinking to start looking at other options. The current Power Manager software, we are all very familiar with it. Like I said, it kind of meets the status quo. I would say almost all of our office procedures are based on Power Manager structure. So a lot of our processes have been worked around through Power Manager. That's how we developed how we do things, how we do our billing, how we do our account setup is through Power Manager. Historically, the customer support fees were very low compared to other systems that are out there for utility billing and financial. However, with the lack of updates and modernization, the structure is very archaic. It's difficult to manage if for somebody new coming in. The tasks are siloed and processes are long, cumbersome, and prone to error. Customer support fees increased 39% last year, making it comparable in cost to other systems that are out there. The pros that we have with Power Manager is that it is customizable, but it's very customized. The field entries are pretty flexible as well. Cons to the Power Manager, the customization does require extensive software knowledge by the staff. We've created our own external spreadsheets, not used within the software as well. It is completely open. Flexible fields have resulted in data format inconsistency. So for example, if we put a phone number in a field, you could put hyphens, you could put decimals, you could put letters in there as well. It's so customizable that nothing is exactly the same in all of the fields. The processes are cumbersome and very time consuming. So for billing, even just the utility billing, that process could take her all day to go through and do our utility bills. The current efforts, the recent developments, as far as the sale of Power Manager to a private firm, the significant increases in annual customer support costs, planned retirement of our two long-term customer support contacts in 2025, and a lack of planned upgrades. Since the city recently upgraded their system, we reviewed their selection process for figuring out which financial software they had also wanted to use or were looking at. We explored other software options such as it's CUSI or Kuzi and SpryPoint CIS. Civic Systems is the same system that the city's using, and also showed the most potential. So having the city using that software actually is a benefit to us because the city can actually coach us through some of the processes as well. Currently using Civic Systems, a few of the references that they gave us were Lake City, St. James, St. Charles, and Slavia, Minnesota. Some of the pros to the Civic Systems software, a lot of the functions and processes are integrated. It's an active system with regular updates. When we did do a demo with Civic Systems, they pointed out certain options that were going to be available in the future where they had release dates for all of these upgrades to the software or additional items we could use. It's an automated process. There are additional modules available for a fee. It is designed for and used by municipalities, including the city of Princeton. It also interfaces with UConn, our AMI system, and Enterlight, which is our customer graphs on the bills, and also how we process credit card payments. We would be able to simplify our processes, which would free up staff to have time to work on other projects, and they have enhanced task management tools. Some of the cons that we will run into is that we would need to redefine, reevaluate, and restructure a lot of our processes and procedures. And there is a large upfront investment with slightly higher annual fees. And then just the fact that we've not used it, so we really don't know how to use it. So then this next slide is a cost comparison showing the upfront investment of both Power Manager and Civic Systems, the annual fee, and then the optional add-ons. So it would be a capital asset project paid for by both departments using the standard G&A allocation and then funded through the CIF. And then we did put together a very vague timeline. So today we're not looking for a decision on whether we should move forward or with Civic Systems, but just kind of presenting it to you so that you can kind of have time to ask questions that you may have, but looking to get a decision in August or September. They do have an 8 to 10 month wait list. So the implementation date wouldn't be for that 8 to 10 months once it's approved. But during that time, we would clean up Power Manager. The cleaner we can get it, as far as making sure all of those fields are standard, would make a importation process for a new software that much easier. And then so clean up Power Manager, review the IT systems to ensure the compatibility of it, and then we may need to redesign the bill format. It sounds like we could use the same bill format as far as showing that graph that we need to have on the billing, and we would just export it one way and import it the next. So then by mid-2025, we would run both systems parallel to each other for that first month, so we can make sure everything transferred over okay, and then the second month it would be live. So I don't know if you guys have any questions.
Or just thoughts and questions.
Yeah, I have a few. So what were the cost of the other programs that you looked at?
So I don't have that with me, but they were all pretty comparable as far as pricing went. The reason we had talked about Civic Systems or kind of agreed with Civic Systems being the best option for us is that it was very user friendly. And also with having the city using it, we have experience right next door to help us work through those issues that we may come across.
Well, that'd be my question, and I maybe shouldn't even know some of this, but and how is it working? When did we start it and how is it working?
Well, we were running Civic Systems previously, but it was very antiquated in like 2005, I think it's when it was released. And so when we did the update, we went a decade, if not more, into the future, going to this new system. We started rolling out our general ledger, which is our main accounting portion, and then we added on pieces onto that. We finished with payroll and with, my viewpoint, which is a all digital invoicing and accounts approving system, so we can approve bills through there, we code it. The implementation was smooth. I mean, granted, we are coming from a system that was compatible, but they handled all the data conversion, gave them a copy of the data. They started testing it, making sure that they could implement it and import it correctly, and they handled everything. And then once we got to the point where we were doing a switchover, we had about a week where we couldn't use the system. We gave them our most up-to-date data. They finished importing it into the new system, and then we started the transition to cutover. And it was about as smooth as you can get for such a large functionality of our community business.
Because I'm assuming the cities probably had way more components to it. Again, I'm not a computer guru,
Well,
compared to what we have. I'm just assuming that or guessing it.
we opted for a lot of extra functionality, just so like the fixed asset management system, we had a very antiquated system in play. We purchased that, we switched to that. The nice thing about civic systems is everything is interconnected, so you can make everything, all the different modules share data with the other modules. So if you set a value, if you purchase something like with a CIP, let's say we purchase a truck, we can put it into the system and then we link it to the fixed asset management. It can pull information from general ledger if we so choose based off the value. So if we upgrade it and make it worth more, it can pull that kind of information in. Or if, let's say we sell it, now the asset management system already knows that something's happened to it. It's not technically on payroll, or it's not technically on in the city anymore. And it just waits for us to finish the decommission process.
And that's pretty standard with accounting systems.
It is.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, just, to me, it seems really expensive, you know. It's all,
So
I mean, I've bought, you know, I have different softwares for my business, so. It's
I mean, it's like-
3 times as much as what I would pay for something similar in my industry. I was a little shocked. I was guessing, you know, Keith kind of shared something. I was guessing in my head when he was talking about it. I think that's probably about 30 grand for something like that, so. For a really good system, you can buy, that's what you know, and another thing, you know, my daughter's a software engineer, and so that industry is changing really fast right now. Like what used to take her a week to program, she's now doing it in a day using artificial intelligence, so, and machine learning. So I wonder like how fast these products are gonna drop in price when the, you know, it's not the field to go into anymore right now because it's flooded, because, you know, they probably eliminated 25, 30% of the jobs are
Yeah.
out there through AI, but I don't know. That's just
Yeah.
how I'm thinking about it.
Can you speak to the updates? It's more, software is more of a subscription service
Yeah.
anymore.
Yes.
So can you talk about how Civic Systems has that structured with the city in terms of actually revs to, you're not buying a program like we used to do as much.
Kind of, you use a little bit of both. So the actual city system, the actual Cassell portion of it, which is the accounting software, you buy that, that's a professional license. So that this upfront investment would be the software, it would be them to convert all of your data over, get everything set up, it would be training. And anything that revolves around that. It is, if I remember correctly, this is from the city's contract, and I don't know if they gave you any quotation. But that is a fixed price, so if it doesn't take them longer to implement the data, it's, they eat those extra hours.
Yeah, that's pretty typical with most of the software I was looking at.
Generally, yeah.
Is it cloud-based or is
It
it?
is not, it's only on site.
Mm.
So it's all localized. It has to run on one of our servers. They do have a hosted, software, but and you're still paying for the initial license and the setup, but you're also then paying for cloud server storage. In regards to that annual fee, if you do, for instance, like e-payroll and the MyPay, those are all softwares developed by Civic Systems that exist outside of the main Casella County software and the interface. Those are updated on sometimes twice a month. It depends on if there's a critical bug, if they'll push an emergency fix out. They're always updating portions of the software that we can get to try to make it more user friendly. That annual fee is, if you use those modules, you're worth out of it because they do put a lot of time and effort to maintain them and improve them. We've never had a fee for calling their support and asking for assistance. One of the big things about Civic Systems support staff is all the staff have to work so many hours in support every month. So whether you're the implementation department or your programmer or your accountant, you have to work with customers so many hours a month, and you have a specialty. And so for our general ledger module, whenever we have issues, they actually assign us a support worker who has accounting experience and has experience using the software in a real life environment. So you get somebody that is knowledgeable in the product and is knowledgeable in what you're trying to do. You're not getting some random person who just follows the script and then sends it up the tree, who then follows the script where you might get an engineer down the road.
And that was for their utility billing portion of it. They have people who were in utility billing in utilities, working there for support.
The annual fee seems, I mean, usually what I've seen is usually between $500 to $1,000 a month for your subscription fees. You know, depending on what you get, what kind of support you get.
And their support turnaround time is very,
You
I wouldn't say it's like amazing, but it's really good. If you call in the morning, you'll hear from somebody in the afternoon. If you call in the afternoon, you'll hear from somebody the next morning generally. If it's on a Friday, you'll hear from somebody sometime mid-morning Monday. So it isn't, unless it's an emergency, there really isn't like an immediate turnaround, but it is, you get support really quickly. And then once you have a support person online, they'll work with you until it's fixed. It doesn't matter how long it takes. If it takes 2 days, that's their job now. Just to make sure that it's fixed.
And my other question is like when I'm identifying and implementing a software or any piece of equipment for that matter, it's like, I mean, a lot of it's really cool, but does it really help your bottom line and efficiencies, So there's a lot of equipment that would be fun to have, but is it, how does that affect the bottom line?
So with the utility billing, right now the process is in a nice thick binder. One of the things that's really nice is that we would be able to have a better team environment. So if Katie were doing the billing, something happens, there's a checklist that goes along with that process that's right on the screen, that's seen by everybody. So if I were going to do the billing process, I could see where she left off and continue on and not have any lag time in between. Which then makes it walks you step by step through the process. Whereas right now to do the process, it's pages and it's interpreted by other people. This makes it more standard to anybody could go in and do the billing process. Not to just go Katie, but literally Keith could jump in and see where Katie left off and continue on. So we wouldn't have any time in between somebody leaving off and the next person picking it up. That wouldn't be an issue, but it also would help create a more fluid process. Whereas right now, like trying to explain some of the pieces of the process, but when you import the meters, it could take the whole morning because you have to go back through this system and then in Power Manager, you may have to rewrite this or, go through and check all these other items, whereas this seems to flow a lot easier.
No, just like, I mean, when we switched billing clerks the last one around there it's tying all these different systems together, I believe, where what field staff is using the Yukon, we're getting this new meters and stuff in there. And then it goes into a completely separate system, so they're transferring all this back and forth, and then just for them to kind of for somebody new to get their head wrapped around it, it takes a lot of time to get somebody up to speed on that, just to kind of catch all them oddities and stuff.
And because things are so customized within Power Manager, there are certain accounts where we have to go in individually, and this would make it so we could just do one workflow. Instead of having to pick out specific customers where, oh, we forgot to put a 0 here or a 1 here. And this would make it to where we don't have to do that, eliminating that human error portion.
I would also add, to me, it's also an opportunity cost. We are spending significant staff time on this monthly billing process, to me, which should be pretty much more straightforward than it is, a lot simpler, but it is requiring a lot of staff time, which then means we can't work on other things like, I've been wanting to do an outage notification process for many years. We just don't have the capacity and don't necessarily want to go out and hire another individual and have, spend all this time doing billing. But if we can automate and make the billing process smoother and quicker, it will free up some staff time to make sure that we're providing modern services to our customers, just like, the Excel energies of the world. So I do see some opportunities in the future by streamlining our process to let us expand our capabilities and providing more modern stuff to our customers as well. So, but that would have, that would take some time to.
Would it reduce staff overall, you think, or no?
I don't believe so, because we need to have a certain amount of staff just to maintain the lobby window and cover vacations and things like that. I don't think we could reduce staff lower than what we have today, given the coverage we need to have. But I think what it would do is allow us to work on even more projects and provide more services to our customers, because we're spending less time on these more mundane and routine activities.
That's all the questions I have.
Start talking about it, and it's pretty much over my head, I get the two things that I look at here. Well, the annual fee appears to be, how far back does that go, the Power Manager, and look at today, I'm just normal inflation.
Yeah, those are the most recent numbers. So the Power Manager fee is what we paid in last October, I think. So that was for 2024. And then the 9,900 for Civic Systems is their quote. So that's their current price.
And that can go up or down, well, probably up on an annual basis then, or.
Yeah, there could be an inflation adjustment on that.
And then the other, when I look at the initial cost, $70,000, how many years are we looking at? Prorate that.
Yeah, so for example, keep in mind that upfront investment does include the first year support, so that's 99.
So that's that was my question, is that?
That includes the first year support.
Yeah,
I think cut that down.
so really you say 60,000.
Correct. It also includes assumptions that they made in terms of training. I don't know how much we need. Again, we're pretty optimistic that Ed's already familiar with it. So from an IT standpoint, we don't really think we need much from them. Ed already knows how to implement it. And then we have just a natural peer network there with the city. I did reach out to one of their references, which is Lake City, who's also a SIMPA member. So I talked to Scott Jensen down there. They've been using Civic Systems for as long as he knows, so over 20 years, and they've been very happy with it. But there is training money in that upfront investment as well. When you talk about a lifetime of the software, that's a bit of a guess. As we mentioned, Power Manager was purchased back in, we think, in the late 80s, early 90s. So, this stuff can last for a while. I would have to I guess, Ed, you can speak to this better than I can. When they do a whole system update, I guess I don't know how often that happens or kind of what price ranges you're looking at.
They haven't, so let me step back a little bit. There have been 3 versions of Casell. There's Casell Classic, which was the original version that came out in early 2000. There's Casell Clarity, which came out, I believe, in late 2000, if not early 2010. And then Clarity was kind of, it was the black sheep of the software because it was a bridging community between Classic and then a full-fledged modern accounting software that is Connect. So after Clarity, Connect came out, I believe in late early 2010 to middle 2010. Clarity was not available for very long. So they've been supporting at least Connect for the last 8 years. I know that for sure. They do quarterly updates on their software for Connect. So Civic Systems is just a vendor of Casell. Civic Systems is actually owned by Utility.
Yeah.
There we go. So Civic Systems just sell the software and then they develop and sell support for Casell, and then they develop their own software that runs on top of Casell, and that's the payroll and all the other things. But this Casell comes out with updates quarterly, and they've been fairly stable. If there's an emergency to send one out, I haven't heard any talks of their plans to come out with a new Casell version. It seems pretty stable. There could be internal discussion, but no one's made it aware that that's going to change. And even with moving from Classic to Connect, we didn't have to pay any license fees. I don't know if they would do for a new version or if it's just included as a customer because you pay an annual support.
I know
If we could get maybe closer to your $30,000 on that up, probably not. You were thinking 30,000.
yeah, I mean, yeah, and
But, and some of the documents might finish down closer to that number. I think that's what I was doing, to prorate that over how much we're gonna get out of this.
my other thought was, I know that public utilities is separate from the city. 2 separate entities. But if we, are maybe sharing, the same IT, maybe we could talk to them about that annual support, since we would kind of be sharing ideas on, or support between us. We wouldn't need to call them for every single thing, and maybe we'd say, hey, well, we kind of can get some of the basic stuff sharing with the city, and maybe we could reduce that annual fee down. Maybe
I mean, overall, just converting to that system to comply or be compatible with them, would just be an overall plus.
yeah, that would be a, something to maybe talk with them about too. We own our own system, but maybe because we're sharing ideas on support, maybe they can reduce that annual fee a little bit or something. That was just a thought. Oh, yeah.
So some of the costs associated with the upfront investment is, looking back 20 years. With the city, we always had to have software that was compatible for audits and stuff like that. So is this something that does that? Is it a requirement, I guess, is what I'm asking, that, so you can't just get any kind of software to do this. You have to have something that's.
It's not necessarily a requirement, but the utility billing process is quite specialized. So are you thinking as far as using?
Well, as far as audits or
Yeah.
anything that's.
So let me just start off by saying this. the city is using Civic Systems right now.
Right.
They have the same audit. So both of those things are common, so we haven't talked to the auditor about it, but I don't foresee that there would be any issues because that's what the city's.
What wasn't the issue is my thought that that's one of the reasons the initial investment was so high is because it's something that as a municipality, we have to have.
I think, I think you often see, and yes, Stan and I talked about this. I told him I was expecting it to be six figures. I was thinking it was gonna be 100,000. So when these numbers came in, I'm like, hey, to me, it was pretty good, but you know, it's stuff like that's all relative. I do think a big portion of that is simply because we're taking data from a different system that's gonna require an unknown amount of work in terms of formatting and standardization. And as Chrissy pointed out, even our phone number entries aren't consistent. All of that's gonna have to get worked through. We're gonna try to do as much as we can up front, and then work with Civic Systems to try to make this as seamless as possible so that we don't lose data. But anytime you're going from one system to another system, data formatting, data transfer just takes time. And that's a lot of labor costs associated. And I think Ed would agree with me on that. I've been through conversions like that and it's painful.
I mean, I understand, you know, I mean, to develop these programs, they probably got $2 to $4 million of engineering into it just to get it off. You know, probably 2 million to get it off the ground, 4 million to get it towards maybe at now. I mean, I understand they gotta get paid back on those sort of things, but at some point, those costs, you know, get taken care of, the more customers you get by volume, but I don't know, yeah, I mean, it'll be a lot of work for staff. And I've done this twice, switched, and it's fun.
It's fun, but
Did the quote include? That's the approval process.
no, so we only had them quote for the general ledger, so that accounts payable, accounts receivable, and the utility billing. The other modules that you can add on would include payroll, purchase orders, project accounting. That's not within this cost at this point.
Are we paying for a payroll system now or the ADP now, right?
We are,
So-
yeah.
So that maybe, you know, sometimes those
Yeah.
costs offset each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with that, with your purchase order, and your my viewpoint, would make it so all of our POs are electronic
Mhm.
versus paper.
I can't imagine that add-on could be that much.
It's not significant.
you know.
No,
It is a shock to implement on their side because they isolate it from, it's cloud-based, so they spin up a separate instance specifically for, would be for us, and then it communicates with our server directly in over our server. So it does cost them a little bit to, in hardware licenses to spin up initially, but then after that, the support cost for this.
The reason we didn't include it is we did want to give the commission more of an apples to apples comparison in comparing Power Manager and what it does for us today versus what a comparable Civic Systems is.
Mhm.
Civic Systems can obviously do a lot more. There are some things there that we're intrigued with. There are some things where we probably won't need, but we wanted to get through to the replacement first, and then at that point, go through that evaluation. Is it worth doing this or not? As you pointed out, we're using ADP for payroll. Doesn't mean that we would automatically switch to Civic Systems once we get everything going, it's something we can look at, and if it makes sense, we'll propose it. If not, we can continue to do payroll through ADP, even with the system.
Paul, I did a quick Google search on software for public
Mhm.
utilities, and the two we're talking about never even came up on the first 2 pages. There's a lot, there's a lot of systems
All right.
that different places use, so it was, you know, and I didn't have enough information to do much more research than that, because I'd have to know what you guys know to really do.
Well, and I will tell you from my perspective, a major factor is the fact that the city's using it. as well as other SIMPA members. So that gives us a peer group.
Mhm.
So that if because support, as I'd mentioned, isn't instantaneous. It's nice if we could call up, say, somebody at the city or somebody at another electric utility and say, hey,
Yeah,
how are you handling this?
right.
Can sometimes be more valuable than, we might find the best program out there, but if we got nobody we can talk to bounce ideas off of, we're all
Yep.
alone. And
Yeah.
I do value the ability for us to leverage our networks and our peers.
And maybe to that point, you could use that for maybe negotiating that annual fee. It was like, hey, we've got all these people we can talk to.
Yeah,
So we might not need as much support as somebody who is coming in with no peer group that's
right.
using it, so. That's all I got. Questions?
So you're looking for us to give you the go ahead to it for it.
Yeah, I mean, we did not come in looking for a decision. This is a big question. We wanted to share with you the work that we've done up to this point. See if there's any, major red flags that you folks see, or if there's additional information you might like. Our thought was, this would be a capital asset investment type of activity. So it should be part of our capital planning. And we can incorporate that. So perhaps bringing that back before the commission in the next month or two, for a decision. And the only reason we were thinking of that was given the 8 to 10 month wait list right now in order to get access to their techs to do the conversion. So it would be nice to get on their list. But we weren't, again, we realized that we threw a lot at you today. So we want to give you some time to digest it and think of any other additional questions. But we would be looking for an approval here, say this fall, early winter, just so we can get on the schedule. Unless there's something, if you folks say, no, there's no way that we're doing this now, we didn't, then that's what we'll do.
No, I mean, I appreciate the forward thinking, looking ahead to make sure we don't get caught with a system that just doesn't work anymore. I mean, and I love improving efficiencies, myself, so
From what I'm hearing, what I live in the knowledge of the modern world, it looks like it sounds like the functionality of it is probably sells itself. But I think what I'm getting here is to look at those numbers and see if we can negotiate them down a little bit. And still get the same service, kind of what I'm hearing anyways.
Well, I think at the very least, we can send out the document that we get for the line item
Yep.
quote that will include the initial cost, will include the training, will include the support for the different components. We can share that full quote with the commission. That'll give you some more information. And then, yeah, we can go back to Civic Systems and see if there's some synergies we can take advantage of to benefit, since we've got the city on it. That might help us and might help the city at the same time too. Maybe we can negotiate an official decrease.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like we did with St. Michael.
Absolutely.
Do more of a group.
No, I like the idea. We're like years ahead of what we were a couple of years ago, where we're sharing stuff with the city, but still keeping our individual identity. That's important. I guess that's what I'm looking at.
yeah, strategic partnership. I don't think it makes us the same. I mean, a lot of businesses do that. So. All right, so we don't really need any action taken, so we can move on to the next agenda item, which is closed session. And I know everybody here is familiar with closed session, right? And the rules and everything and the topics that can be discussed. So I don't know if you really need to read anything.
You have a script?
You have to read that script, okay.
Yeah.
I knew there was something, I knew there was something that we should. So I guess I will. The agenda item for this special, closed session. Item is for this meeting is to discuss, the performance review of the general manager. This portion of the properly noticed regular meeting of the Princeton Public Utilities Commission will be closed pursuant to the Minnesota statute section 13D.05 subdivision 2. A3 under the employee performance review exception to the Minnesota open meeting law. The purpose of the closed meeting is not to make a decision behind closed doors, but instead is to determine what actions are necessary, if any. The only business to be discussed in this portion of the meeting is the general manager's performance review. I will now entertain a motion to close this portion of the meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close this portion of the meeting. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The commission will now go into closed session. The time is
141.
1:41. Only the officials and consultants of the commission who reasonably require access to this data may be in attendance at any portion of the meeting for this agenda item. The minutes of this portion of the meeting should reflect only that a meeting was held with its date, time, and location, who was present at the meeting, and the purpose of the meeting. Conclusion, members of the commission, following the completion of our business, we will now adjourn into open session. I will entertain a motion to adjourn the closed portion of the meeting and go back into open session. So I guess it's a motion for both.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the closed session and to go move into open session. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We're now in open session. Entertain a motion for step increase.
Okay, then I'll make the motion to give the manager a step increase of,
All you get is
okay, and then end the bonus or not.
No, just like.
Yeah, the motion is to give the manager a step increase.
Second, perfect. All right, we have a motion and a second to give the public utilities manager step increase. All in favor, signal by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 3-0. I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.